Okay, so obviously there's been a movie I've been anticipating for the past couple of years.
Yeah, to say the least.
So I thought it was important enough, and because, you know, I've talked about it so much already in the awards prediction videos, I've basically reviewed this movie about 5 times, and I haven't even seen it until now. So
it's amazing,
that's what
isn't
I feel
it?
like anyway. So I decided why not just give it its own video. Because, for that reason, and also for the reason that I was under the impression that the story was well known, and the ending of this movie was like, you know, practically common knowledge, if you had heard of the movie.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people I have seen where, if you just talk about the basic aspect of the basic layout of the story, people get really pissed off because they don't realize that that's how it ends. So this is just kind of like our big beginning to end spoiler video for it that has all of the details to go into about everything.
So it's branded spoiler alert, and it says spoiler alert on the actual video itself, but it's not a traditional spoiler alert.
Yeah, kind of.
It's more like how we did the Iceman, basically, is the best way to compare it. Because we basically ran the Iceman down from top to bottom.
Yes.
And that video's on this channel if you want to check that out, so...
So now we have Foxcatcher, of course. The story... Yes, now this is a spoiler video, I will tell you. It is the story of how Mark Schultz, who was a wrestler with his brother, Dave, and they were Olympic wrestlers. And they were, like, I guess in the wrestling community at that time, they were like gods.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
And then one day Mark got a call from the DuPont estate about how John DuPont wanted him to come down and wanted to talk with him. Apparently they didn't say what for. He just kind of had to go out there blindly and then figure it out as he went. And John DuPont wanted to start a wrestling team on Foxcatcher Farms where he lived. The giant big estate where he lived with just himself and his mother. His really, really sickly old mother. And eventually, he wanted to try to get Dave on as well to train. And they were going to have this team. And all of this leads to a very bizarre series of events that ends with John DuPont shooting and killing Dave in his driveway. And this also went on, I guess he like holed himself up in like a cabin or something. For like 3 days, and then eventually the cops finally got him out and arrested him for it. When I heard that, I was under the impression that's like way back, like before they were even, I think when they were still shooting the movie, I had seen that that's what the story was.
Yeah. I
had assumed that, because even the plot outline on IMDb talked about, that's what happened. Like that in its entirety. So I was under the impression that the movie was going to be about DuPont basically in hiding while the cops were trying to get him out. That's what I thought the whole movie was going to be. Yeah. When I first heard the outline. No, all of that is like in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So you have to, I've seen some complaints where people who didn't know the story going in feel like they're really being like kind of left out of stuff. Like it's a lot more. It's a movie a lot more for people that know the story.
Oh yeah, totally.
Just like, because when I was watching it, I did realize the confrontation there at the end when DuPont went away and then they had to pull him out. Had I not known the story, I would not have known what the fuck was going on there.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it all happens from a distance too. So yes, now obviously this has a lot going into it. We will start, because like I said, it went to Cannes and got some of the best reviews out of there. Obviously, Ben Miller won Best Director there, which is like a huge, prestigious thing. And yeah. So naturally, everything going into this movie I was really, really excited about. Particularly the casting.
Well, definitely. Because
these 3 leads in this kind of story, it just is extremely attention-grabbing. The only person that I could really see in a movie like this before I saw was Ruffalo. I could totally see Ruffalo in a movie like this, sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But your lead, and Ruffalo's the supporting player. Well, I guess Yeah, some people have said that he kind of goes into leading territory in the last third there, and I can see that.
I can agree with
There's
that.
a lot of Dave at the end there, in the last third.
There has to be. It's setting up for everything.
But for most of the movie, the two leads are Steve Carell and Channing Tatum. A lot of people even argue that Carell is supporting, which I can also see, because he's kind of gone for long periods of time, and it takes him about 20 minutes to show up. So really, this big, prestigious movie that, you know, did really well at Cannes, and is getting some of the best reviews of the year, rests mainly on the shoulders of Channing Tatum.
Which, if you would have said this like 5-6 years ago, we probably would have laughed in your face.
Yeah, and even now, though, people are having, like, their big reservations about it.
I don't see how. He's shown that he has acting chops.
You know, because, like, well, the second, okay, for a while there, I was the person that said, well, Channing Tatum would have, he just looks like a dumbass, and he probably is, and his acting's not very good and stuff like that. The moment I realized that Channing Tatum was capable of a lot more, I swear to God, by the way, I'm not just saying this for comedic effect, the moment I realized that Channing Tatum was probably a lot more than we were giving him credit for, and had a lot more, you know, charisma and presence than we were expecting, is the scene in 21 Jump Street when he dives through the gong.
Yes.
That's not... that moment. And Haywire,
Yeah.
you know, he had kind of a presence there for that kind of part. But even so, you know, yeah, he has, you know, kind of a presence in action movies, and he can do comedy. But still, this is a really, really bleak... words that are even escaping me. This is a drama. This is a very hardcore drama.
Oh, definitely.
And to rest on his shoulders is a big responsibility that Bennett Miller had faith in him to do, so we should too.
Absolutely.
And after seeing it, I think people should. The people that are having their reservations about it. And he really, really went for it too. One thing, obviously, to throw out there immediately, which I'm sure you've heard about right now, it's this year's version of when DiCaprio broke the glass with his hand. To my understanding, because it's been brought up everywhere, and Bennett Miller swears to it, and Channing Tatum swears to it, the scene everybody wants to talk about where Mark loses the match, and he's just pacing around his hotel room, really, really pissed off at himself and the situation and the loss and just everything. So he just goes into barbaric mode and starts beating himself up, literally, and then smashes his head not only through the glass picture frame there, but through the wall behind it.
Yeah.
And apparently that is 100% real. That's a real wall, that's real glass, real everything.
I completely believe that, too.
And just the way he can... This is for all three people, but with Tatum it really stood out. Everybody in this movie... Like, obviously people look at Carell and they say, you know, transformation. The makeup, the nose, the voice, the mannerisms.
It is not Steve Carell like you know him.
But when you watch the movie, all three of them go through a transformation like
Yeah.
that. Because when you look at Tatum, obviously, you know, he's Channing Tatum, and he has to kind of play this brute character, so you're like, well, of course. But, no, this isn't just, you know, Channing Tatum saying, well, I fit the part, here I am. He also is going through this. Like, there's the walk, and there's, like, the way he eats, and there's the way, like, his jaw is kind of jutting out. He's just really within that character. Much like a lot like the first 20 minutes of the movie before anything happens are just silent scenes of him going through his routine.
He's doing his wrestling drills too, and it's amazing, especially if you've had to do them before.
And speaking of the wrestling drills, once again, I saw the images of Ruffalo where he had, you know, the hairline and the beard and stuff like that.
The bald spot.
When you look at Dave Schultz, like in pictures, he looks like John Bernthal.
Yeah.
But when Ruffalo came out, even people tend to give Ruffalo a hard time for range, because generally he's the warm, soft-spoken character.
Mm.
And once again, that's like, you know, that's absolutely what the character of Dave is here too. He's like that. He's like the only person in the movie that's got, like, you know, a warm presence to him. Like, if you're like really bogged down by all the bleakness, every time Ruffalo's on screen is probably a breath of fresh air for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And even in that case, the opening scene where Mark is kind of on the mat getting ready, and Dave is in the office with those three guys, and then Dave comes out, and Ruffalo's doing a whole other thing too. Like, it wasn't Ruffalo that walked out of there like we thought, because we don't really see him or hear him, and we just kind of see him through the glass of that room. But then when he comes, and you're like, oh, there's Ruffalo. And then he comes out, and it's like, oh, there's Dave.
Yeah.
He's got the voice, and he also kind of has a distinct walk and presence about him. And all of that is just really great. Now we should probably go into Carell.
Yes.
Now, I guess some people are kind of... it's that thing where it was kind of, you know, he was really, really hyped up for a long time. The very first still I think that came out was... The first official still was when he's sitting, like, behind his desk.
Yeah.
But I remember the very first still that ever came out was one of the still shots of them during the photo shoot with Tatum doing the pose and Carell standing in front of him. And it was at that moment where people were like, oh, wow, what's going on with Carell here? But there were some criticisms because when you look at, like, you know, there's one particular video that's been released recently from the documentary. And, yeah, in his appearance, they kind of, the nose is right and everything and the voice is right, but some people complained that in appearance, it wasn't exactly. Because he had, like, blonde hair and was kind of taller than Steve Carell is, and Carell is kind of like this really small, like... Steve Carell looks like he's preparing to play the Penguin.
That's interesting casting.
And his hair is, like, graying.
Yeah.
So I guess people, you know, complained about that. But as far as, like, being there in spirit, like, Mark... We'll get into the real Mark Schultz recently, because I guess there's a controversy today.
Yep.
But, there was an interview with Mark Schultz, and you know... Okay. Mark Schultz was asked about how he felt about seeing Steve Carell in character on the set. And he said, it was truly startling. Like, I felt like that John DuPont had been resurrected from the dead. It was really off-putting. Which is a good thing for Carell.
Yeah, definitely.
And now, yeah, you can back that up by saying, well, you know, Mark Schultz was, you know, there the whole time they were making the movie. And, you know, it's his life story and stuff like that. So, yeah, maybe there'll be some hyperbole involved here. But this is him talking about the guy that murdered his brother. I don't think he's going to try to sell the movie by saying how great Carell is.
No way.
I think it comes from a real place when he says, I saw Steve Carell and it was fucking startling. So, take that for what you will. Yeah, there is a controversy going on right now where I guess, despite being on location the whole time and being there the whole time the movie was being made, I guess... right now, Mark Schultz is not happy with the movie. Particularly Bennett Miller. Like, I saw one where it was talking about... He was happy with Channing Tatum's performance. He was glad that, you know, Channing Tatum played him. And he was happy with the fact that Dave is now immortalized on film. Mm. But something about Bennett Miller is pissing him off right now. But it's... as of right now, they're being really vague. He's being real vague about it. So it's hard to say. I guess some people thought maybe it was like a prank account or like, you know, he was hacked or something. But there's... And it's still kind of vague right now, but people are very curious as to what's going on with that. Yeah, all it says is like stuff like, I hate Bennett Miller and I'm going to make sure you never work again and stuff like that. It's weird, but, you know, I guess we'll see what happens with that. But the movie as it is... Yeah.
Good Lord.
I hate everything that scum touches. I hate Bennett Miller. Everything I've ever said positive about the movie, I take back. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. I can tolerate a lot of things, but I don't tolerate disrespect. We're done, Bennett.
Oh, wow.
You crossed the line, Miller. We're done. Your career is over. You think I can't do it? Watch me. Yeah, he's really pissed off about something. You think I'm going to sit back and watch you destroy my name and reputation? I sweat blood for you. You ain't seen nothing yet, dude.
Oh my god.
Well, this also has something to do... What happened was, the reason Foxcatcher's an original screenplay is because Mark Schultz's book wasn't published, but now it is, and it's being sold. Some people think this is maybe like, you know, him realizing he can make money off the book and doesn't have to rely on the movie and can kind of sell the book this way. I don't know. I'm not in Mark Schultz's head. I don't know. So... I mean, we've seen, you know, Mark Schultz's head slammed against picture frames and walls, so it's hard to say, but, you know.
He's talking about there being, like an understated sexual relationship between DuPont and Mark.
I kind of got that.
I got it somewhat too, and that's
like
being like talked about here.
Yeah, because there's that moment where it reminded me of the relationship between Damon and Liberace and Behind the Candelabra.
Yeah.
Because Mark goes through this phase where he like colors his hair and like wears the short shorts and is always hanging around Foxcatcher Farms with him, and yeah, I remembered hearing about that too, like when it was at Cannes and stuff. How there was I guess there was always that that theory, but then again at the same time movies are still fictional. Like, there isn't going to... Like, no matter how much, how many family members or family friends or people who were actually there are on the set, a movie is not going to be 100% fact unless it's, like, a very well-made documentary.
Check this out. This is ridiculous about all the things that he says are falsities in the movie.
Yeah.
Things that never happened. He never moved to Foxcatcher Farms. He took a job with Villanova and coaching. That's the reason why he moved to Pennsylvania.
I believe Bennett Miller and the screenwriters, Dan Futterman and E. Max Price, said, immediately, like, this is going to have fiction in it because it's a movie.
Yeah.
But the main story, because if you look up at a bunch of true stories, like JFK, for instance, when you watch JFK, everything feels so real and everything feels so fact-based. Like, half of that movie is shit Oliver Stone made up.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's really hard to say, but judging it as a movie, there's so many great things to say.
Wow.
And there was a reason it's one of the best reviewed movies of the year.
Absolutely.
Whether or not awards ceremonies will, reflect that or not. It's being called one of the more well-crafted movies of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, generally, like, let's say, Haneke movies.
That's interesting you bringing that up.
There are a lot of scenes in this movie that are just kind of in one place and they're silent and you're just kind of watching things happen. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of Tatum and Ruffalo training. But in a story like this, like you could say, it's a story about DuPont and it's a story of how, he went crazy and did the things he did, or what was going on in this, area of his life made him do the thing that he did. I saw this as a story about brothers, which I think is generally the what Miller and everybody was going for, to an extent. And that's the thing like that is, in a bad movie, the training scenes would just feel like they're going on and on and on and on and stuff like that. But this is basically their way of not using dialogue to show just how close they are as brothers and how they're, like, on the exact same wavelength, And I thought that was a really good way to do it. That was a lot of compliments it got were about how mature the storytelling was, as far as every emotion or everything about the characters in the movie that needs to be conveyed. Practically none of it is through dialogue. It's all just watching them. Like the moment where Edward Norton was talking about this, actually. The scene where Dave gets off the helicopter when he gets to Foxcatcher. And you see the way, John is happy to see him and stuff like that. And then you see, Mark is there, and then you see all the wrestlers coming up, and when he gets off, he's got his family with him.
Yeah.
And it's like, in this one shot with no dialogue, you know everything you need to know about Dave.
Yeah.
The way people approach him, the way he is with his family, how John feels about him. Just, it's all in here in just this one scene that's really brief, actually. And I'm mistaken, Mark wasn't there, actually. Because by this point, that's kind of another thing that speaks for itself. Mark wasn't there, because Mark was kind of, resentful at this point, because in the movie, the way the movie portrays it, it was almost like Mark kind of felt like he was starting to play second fiddle to Dave through DuPont's eyes.
He just lived in the guest house.
And DuPont's the one that he wants to impress.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, because you could kind of sense that where, when Mark first gets there and he's talking to DuPont in the room, and he's basically, DuPont's giving him the big thing about this is your time, we as a nation have failed to recognize you and stuff like that. And he's making it all about Mark and stuff like that. So Mark kind of feels like now this is his time to really show everybody what he has. And then, of course, he says, I also want to bring Dave out here. And you can kind of sense that, he feels like, he kind of somewhat maybe feels like he's in Dave's shadow.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yes, and none of this is actually said. You can just tell when you watch their relationships all of this that's going on. Another interest, okay, let's talk about Vanessa Redgrave now. We haven't talked about her. She's only in it for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But her presence is really important, especially through DuPont's character. Because much like Mark always wanting to impress DuPont and want to be seen by him, DuPont wants to be recognized by his mother. You know, he wants to put, his trophies in her trophy room, and he just wants to be accepted, because she hates the sport of wrestling. She thinks it's low. She doesn't like her son.
Him, yeah.
She doesn't like her son being low. But he just wants her to accept him and what he does.
Yeah.
And there's that scene where he's basically invited her to come down and watch the training. And he's kind of, you can tell he's like doing it under pressure, but she's just there, just kind of watching what he does. And then while he's like got his back turned and he's training somebody, she just leaves. And then when he turns back around and she's gone, and you can kind of tell, this is where Carell is really, really good. Because you would think, there's a lot of things you would think about Carell's performance on the surface without seeing it for yourself. There's the fact that you have a hilarious comedic actor, like a comedic genius. And then, he's like, he gets the dramatic role. He's going to do the makeup. He's going to completely transform. On paper, the first thing you probably imagine is it's going to be really, really showy. But there is not one single showy scene from Carell.
No.
DuPont is so, internal. Because there could be a big moment. There are a couple of scenes where DuPont could have had a big moment. Like, there's the scene where his mom leaves while he's training the guy. And when he sees that she's gone, he almost doesn't even react. But you can tell it hurts him. Because he's just, he just kind of looks away and then says, okay, let's get going. And then he kind of turns around and doesn't look at anybody, like he's embarrassed by it. And then there is the moment where she dies. And we don't actually see his actual reaction to this. We see him after the fact. And, you expect, maybe a big crying scene or, a big monologue or something about how he never was enough for her or something.
No.
All we get is the scene with him and Ruffalo, where he and Ruffalo have already had that altercation. And then he's just kind of standing there watching the training, and Dave comes up and says, I'm real sorry about your mom. He just says, oh, no, it's all right. And, you can tell there's a real pain going on here, but it's just so within him. He's not going to do the big scene.
He did let all of her horses go, though.
Yeah, that's as close as he gets to a showy scene.
That's about it.
But even then, he's running away from the camera.
Yeah.
So it's just like his way of outright defying the showy role that a lot of people think this is.
It's
looking
definitely
at not. And that's just what's really, really brilliant about it. And a lot of people in the industry have talked about, these aspects of it. And I'd really like to think he's not going to go ignored.
I don't see it happening.
I know he's already got SAG and Globe, which is good, but a lot of people are down he gets in there. But, I'm really, really, really pulling for it.
Yeah, same here.
And yeah, it's a real shame about Channing Tatum. He's getting huge praises. If you read the critics' reviews, he's got the best reviews of all three of them. But it's just one of those years where it's really tough to get awards recognition.
Especially Best Actor.
Yeah. And yeah, it's safe to see why Ruffalo secured the spot. One of Ruffalo's best scenes, it might be his best scene, is, like I said, he's been that warm presence through the whole movie. When you watch Dave, you get the idea that he doesn't have a bad thing to say about anybody.
Yeah.
He's just, really likes where he is in life. He's got the family, he's got the wife, he's got, the great wrestling career going on. Everything's going right for him, and he conveys that as a really, humble person that's just happy with his success. And wouldn't say a bad thing about anybody. And then we get this scene where he has to be part of the documentary. And
yeah.
It's just him and the camera guy in a room alone. And he's basically being told to say good things about John DuPont. And he can he can't bring himself to do it. He basically says it, but it's you sense that there's no, real meaning in it at all. He cannot muster one positive thing to say about John DuPont and say it sincerely, because that's how he felt about him. He could just sense that something was really wrong about him. And then, of course, this just kind of gradually leads to the events where I guess obviously, I guess generally the people who haven't seen it, you would think that something bad's going to happen to one of these three people because DuPont keeps talking about his weapons, which I guess is a big thing about the true story.
Yeah.
Like, I guess there was one wrestler at Foxcatcher that claimed that he and DuPont were in a room alone together, and DuPont just pulled a gun on him and just held it there forever. Just for seemingly no reason. And then there was the whole, he tried to buy, like, a fucking tank.
But he got mad because they didn't mount his gun for him. Yeah,
he was very precise about the guns that he wanted. Something is bound to happen here. And that's the thing about it, is what's great about the way this movie is crafted, is you can tell, like, it doesn't build itself up to be a movie that ends in death, per se.
No.
It's a movie about wrestling and brothers, and to use for lack of a better word, an eccentric rich guy. But you can just sense that something bad is going to happen just by you can't really explain it. You just have to. There's something about the atmosphere in this movie where, despite the subject matter, something awful is building up. And I get when you don't know the story going in, that could be. I'd really love to know what's going through the heads of people who don't know the story watching this, because you can sense in the atmosphere something really bad is going to happen. And it's kind of the unexpected thing that happens. There are multiple things. John DuPont could have been building up for some big killing spree, not just one person.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a lot of people who went into the movie without knowing the story thought he was going to kill Mark.
It's the trailer. That's the last thing you see in the trailer is he has the gun and he's walking towards Mark. And then it ends.
Yeah, because I remember before they pushed this last year, in 2013, they released the teaser trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I guess by accident. And the last shot in it was DuPont with his back to the camera in the gym, watching everybody wrestle and practice with the gun in his hand. And that's where that teaser stopped. And right as soon as they took that teaser down, they said, by the way, we pushed a movie another year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sony, so much. So, yeah. Now, and yes, I guess, it really is surprising. I guess a lot of people have talked about, like, even knowing what's coming, like, they knew the story going in.
Mm-hmm.
The gunshot still scared the shit out of them because of just how it was placed in the scene. Because you think, he pulls up and he pulls the gun on Dave, and then he's, talking to him. And you think it's going to be kind of this confrontation, but then he just says, like, one thing, and then Dave responds, and then he just shoots him. Just like that. And then points the gun at his wife before just driving off.
Yeah.
And I understand that there were other things that aren't in the movie. Like, I guess, like, Dave was gonna, like, go off and be, like, in the Olympics or something.
Mm-hmm.
And was gonna leave Foxcatcher. And I guess that, like, made DuPont really pissed off. But I love just how mysterious everything in the movie is. Because it's really, really, like, not in a lazy way either. Not like we couldn't fit. It's worth noting that Ben and Miller said the original cut of the movie was 4 hours long.
Yeah.
So it's gonna feel like stuff isn't in there. But the way you just kind of, this atmosphere just kind of builds, and how it feels totally just completely from out of nowhere. Because like we were talking about, it's the scene where he's just sitting there watching his own documentary. He just watched it from beginning to end. He's just watching the credits roll. And then he calls in like his bodyguard guy and just asks him, is it snowing? And then it's just like he said, okay, it's not snowing. I can go out and kill Dave today.
Yeah, for those of you that know what's coming up, when you hear that line, you just know it's about to go down.
Like I said, when you watch the movie and you don't know that there was a lot of stuff leading up to it, it just feels like something totally crazy happened spontaneously.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if you have an advantage of knowing, you can kind of sense that. Like, I don't know if not knowing the story you can sense that or not, but knowing the story, I had that sense that, even if I hadn't known the story, I would have felt like something bad was going to end with us.
You
just through the whole thing
quite well with the actual story, which I know a little bit about, obviously, with my wrestling background, so.
Like, even before he gets the call to go to Foxcatcher, there's just something about this atmosphere that it just feels ill-fated.
Yeah.
So, whatever it is that Bennett Miller did, that's what's so amazing about the kind of director Bennett Miller is. I love Capote, I really like Moneyball, and I love this. But I can't specifically tell you what makes Bennett Miller a great director. You just have to kind of watch his movies and feel it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So, and how, I don't know how he does it, but he just makes the right decisions and just knows his atmospheres just so well, and is just able to create this feeling. His movies feel more like feelings than, watching a movie. And that's what makes him so great. Like I said, I know a lot of people think it's a long shot, but I'm really, really pulling for him to get recognized.
I hope it happens.
And like I said, I feel like, there's a lot of people in the industry that understand this movie this way.
Yeah, totally.
So, I guess we'll see what happens. Like, I know a lot of people saying how, general audiences probably wouldn't know what in God's name to think. Especially if they just go in for a movie starring Steve Carell and Channing Tatum.
This might be interesting to watch to see what the reaction of a sold-out crowd would be to this movie in this town.
Or I would have loved to have seen it, in the Cannes crowd where everybody clearly loved it.
Oh, yeah, totally. How we got to see the Grand Budapest Hotel earlier this year.
See, I can see people being off-put by it because it does... I know this is... I hate it when people say stuff like this because it sounds so pretentious and it's really presumptuous, but... I can understand a lot of people going into this and being put off because everything is told through just watching the people as opposed to, mentioning a lot of stuff in dialogue. Yeah. But, like I said, a lot of people call it spoon-feeding, but I hate that term because it's just presumptuous and makes you sound like a douchebag.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely Bennett Miller is somebody that really understands that film is a visual medium, and you can tell a story simply in visuals without it being some, artsy bullshit. So, yes. This is definitely one of those movies where, if you watch it once, you won't have, even if you hate it, I don't think you're going to have a firm opinion of it as soon as you walk out of it. It'll be that movie where, the next day or, the next week or whatever, it really kind of gets in your mind and just kind of stays there.
Oh, yeah.
And it just kind of builds and builds in your head, and you have to see it over and over and over again. Which is the way I was with Capote and Moneyball. When I saw Capote and Moneyball, I was like, that was alright, I guess. Hoffman was good, and, Pitt and Jones, we're good. I'm done. And then, naturally, those movies came back into my life, and I saw them multiple times. And now, especially Moneyball.
Yes.
Because Moneyball's definitely a movie that grows on rewatches.
I love Moneyball.
And I know this is definitely going to be one of those, too. I wouldn't be surprised if I see Foxcatcher 10 more times in the next few months.
I know how you watch movies, and, yeah, that'll probably definitely happen. I will say, though, we talked a lot about Kurt Angle off camera. And I wanted to mention that, obviously, because obviously I'm the wrestling guy. But
I've been watching some interviews with him, and I guess he said that he's really supportive of the movie.
Very much so.
He's just disappointed that he wasn't more involved with the production.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that he was extremely busy with obviously with TNA and everything. But I'm sure they probably would have given him some time off to go and shoot some sort of a cameo. Because if you didn't know something that. It took a while to resonate, but he did when he won the gold. When he won the Olympic gold medal, Schultz actually trained Kurt Angle, and when he won, he dedicated the medal to him, to his memory.
But at the same time, though, I don't think Bennett Miller's the kind of director that says, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was a cameo in this movie?
But it wouldn't necessarily be a cameo because Kurt Angle was part of Foxcatcher Farms at one point, which is true.
Yeah. Well, he looked like Kurt Angle now, though, in that time. It'd be weird in the 80s. So,
He'd have hair like he did when he first got into WWF.
You can just assume, you look at the guys there, you can just assume one of those is Kurt Angle.
No, it is. I'm pretty sure it actually is.
So, yeah. But it's nice to see, he's still supportive of the movie.
Yeah, I'm reading his Facebook feed from November saying that this has a lot of Oscar buzz, and he talks about he made Dave's legend live on.
So yes, it's a very mysterious story, and it's told in just the perfect way, because it's a mysterious story told in a mysterious way. That's pretty much the only way you could do it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to imagine anybody other than Bennett Miller doing this now.
Yeah, completely.
Because I think this is really the only way it could have worked. I mean, like, this well. I'm sure you could make a good movie out of it if you had the talent regardless. But
yeah, of course.
I think this is the absolute best way this story could be told on a screen. Even if there's fiction in it, that's going to be in any movie about a true story. So
I mean, it's cold, it's dark, it's distant. It's not going to make you have a great time, but you're going to sit back and realize...
Oh, yeah, it'll depress the shit out of you.
Oh, absolutely. Right after I got done watching, I was like, wow, this is wow.
And like,
I'm just going to sit in the darkness for about 15 minutes now.
And there's even times where, like, when you're watching a true story and you say, like, like, when a true story is triumphant.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, that seems, people can say, oh, that's being manipulative emotionally and shit like that.
Yeah.
But, it's the story just being told what it is.
True.
So, in that same sense, this is a depressing story being told exactly as it was, the outcome, I mean. And it makes for a depressing movie because of that.
This is like when Larry Clark took Jim Schultz's Bully and made it into a film. That's exactly how I felt after this was over with. Obviously not the same concept, but you understand what I mean by true life story. I read the book. And did you read the subject matter? Like, did you read any of, like, the books that were put out about this when you were doing your wait for the actual movie?
God, that was over a year ago.
Yes.
I read stuff, but I don't remember. I don't remember where exactly it was.
I read stuff, says AJ.
Yeah. And I read the script.
How much was changed?
I really don't remember.
It's been that long since you read the script?
Yeah, it was over a year. It was back when I thought the movie was coming out last year.
Yeah, that's right. You're doing a lot of prep for it. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting movie to watch with a big crowd, honestly.
This late in the game probably won't happen.
No.
Unless you're in, like, a really big city. But
yeah.
Even then, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, the word's getting out that it's great, but the word's probably also getting out that it's really depressing and dark and stuff like that.
Okay, I'm going to say right now, once this comes to my theater, and I know it will when it gets its Oscar nomination, because that's usually how it happens every year. Once this comes to my theater, I'm really curious to be in the back of the theater when it ends, just to see how people react to it. Because when movies end like this, it's like when I was watching No Country for Old Men. There was, like, murmurs. It would start, like, at the second that the movie ended, and then it would go throughout the theater and into the hallway and out in the parking lot, and people were still talking. I can imagine this being a movie that resonates like that. Because it's going to kick you in the stomach, it really is.
It was always fun to hear Tommy Lee Jones's clock ticking, and then the credits come up, and just everybody's...
What did I watch? I'm going to get another ticket to watch it next week. I have to take my friend to this. That's what I think Foxcatcher is going to do, at least in my theater. I think it's going to be a word-of-mouth movie. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is anyone's guess this day and age, but 2015, who knows?
Okay.
But one of the best movies of the year, without a doubt.
I think that about sums it up.
So, hopefully you're enjoying our massive amounts of movie content you're getting on this channel these next couple weeks. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. And don't forget, we are starting Celebrity Apprentice soon, so that's going to be back on this channel as well. Maybe a little bit more condensed than it was last year. I don't really have a main horse in the race, a legit horse in the race like I did last year, so I'm not going to get as peeved if somebody gets fired, so I won't be as not wanting to do a second part of that video, because that second part of the video will never see the light of day, because the wrong person won and everyone knows it. But a lot of things still to come. Obviously, we have our first award show in a couple weeks, so it's going to be fun. Our award season sounds going to be really entertaining, and go Foxcatcher. So, thank you guys and girls out there for watching, and until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all we got to say about that.